Today we're going to talk about the Stanley No. 1. This is a Stanley No. 8. That is a Stanley No. 1. Now, a little warning, I'm probably going to be starting a lot of arguments today because if you're talking about hand tools, you're talking about arguments. And the Stanley No. 1 has quite a few of them around it. This is a cute plane, a very, very small plane, a dainty plane. Some would say a worthless plane. But no matter what you say, it is a very, very expensive plane. The Stanley No. 1 is 5.5 inches long and 1.5 inches wide. It is an incredibly small plane. The earliest of Stanley planes did not have a lateral adjuster. That was just something that was added in later types. However, the Stanley No. 1, no matter which one you get, does not have the lateral adjuster. That is something that just never came to the Stanley No. 1. There are lots of other things that are very different about this plane from others in the whole series. As they changed, all of the other planes kind of changed together. The knob shapes changed, the stampings changed, the additions changed. But when it came to the Stanley No. 1, there were very few things that changed from one to another, or they might have carried over from one to another. So dating these is very, very difficult. It's kind of one of these things that has spurred a lot of questions of why in the world was this made? And that's where most of the arguments come from. The next step up, the Stanley No. 2, is fully useful. The tote it's still a small tote, so it fits a smaller hand, but it's still something that is very comfortable. I can use this without any problem. However, the No. 1, I can't fit that. It doesn't fit in my hand. I can't get my fingers in there. It's not a functional plane for a full-size hand. Functionally, it's in the same size range as a block plane. However, this is just not as comfortable to use as a block plane because the block plane fits nicely in the palm of the hand. It's something that is sculpted to fit there. You grab either side, palm in the middle. If you need another hand, you can get the thumb on the front. This one it doesn't work well as a block plane. Despite that, I still hear people regularly saying, oh yeah, I regularly use my No. 1 because there are small things that it can do that others can't. And really you have to say, no, it's a block plane with a handle. There's nothing that this can do that a block plane can't do. And a block plane is more comfortable. But there are still people who say they use it. And one of the reasons why they use it is they have it. And they have to justify having it, so they have to have it. Now, I know I made a lot of people really, really angry out there because there are people who honestly believe that, yes, this has uses that other planes don't have, to which I kind of have to wonder at because, yeah, but there are people who really, really believe that. And so if you're one of those people, I'm sorry, I'll have to disagree with you, but that's one of the great things about woodworking. There is no right way to do it, and if you like using the No. 1, then use your No. 1. But the big question comes, why in the world did Stanley actually make a No. 1? I'm sure he made it for a specific purpose. And in all honesty, the reason that he made it is that people wanted to buy it. So the question isn't why did Stanley make it, the question is why did people want to buy it? There are as many theories to that question as there are No. 1s on the market. Now granted, there are not a whole lot of No. 1s on the market, but there's still a lot of them, and there's a lot of theories out there. The most common one that I hear is that this was made for kids. Elementary schools would buy these for their elementary shop classes. And that would be great, other than the fact of, I really don't see a lot of proof of that. It's a theory. It's a decent theory. It makes a lot of sense. But I don't see the history of it. I brought my kids down to the shop and let them hold on to this. And my 10-year-old daughter, this handle is way too small for her hand. My 7-year-old son, it's right on the edge. He can barely get his fingers into it. So if a kid is 7 years or older, they're probably not going to be able to use this plane because it's too small for even their hands. Now, yes, if you had a 5 or 6-year-old child, they probably could use this, but in that case, I would probably just give them a block plane because this works just as well, and it's a little bit easier for two hands to grab onto. But if you want to teach them proper technique, holding this and holding the knob and running it, then yes, you could actually use a No. 1 for kids. One of the problems with figuring out why was this made was that there really aren't any advertisements listing the number one and its great virtues or uses. It's just listed with all the planes of, you can buy the number one, you can buy the number two, you can buy the number three, there's all their sizes. And Stanley never said that, this is for kids, or this is for specific use, or this is for detail work. It is one of those planes that just doesn't have a place in the normal mindset of the modern person. But apparently back then, it did. One of the interesting things about their history is that Stanley made a lot of these hand planes. They made just about as many of these as they made number twos and number threes. But we don't see a lot of them now. Most of these have disappeared, and they are very rare and hard to come by. And if you see two of these in the same place, it's like the planets aligning in the sky. We actually lost a lot of these in the scrap drive for World War II. And one of the reasons for that is by the time World War II came around, these really didn't have a purpose anymore. They're, a block plane that's uncomfortable. So why hold on to this when you can support the war effort and scrap it? One of the few interesting pieces of history we do have on them is there are quite a few references to these actually having a bit of an ethos to them back in the turn of the last century. Even the Studley tool chest had one of this held in great regard with this beautiful housing for it. It was something that was very precious and something that was very valuable. And you kind of got to wonder, why would this be so precious and valuable when it's really close to the same price as a 2 or 3 at the time, because you could buy it out of a catalog. The truth is, the Stanley No. 1 gained a bit of notoriety and ethos to it very early on, and it was kind of held as the number 1. You were just taught to hold this in high regard because it is something special. It is something cute. And we as human beings view something cute as something that is valuable and worth protecting. And for a lot of that, that's one of the reasons why Stanley No. 1s were around, is when you bought the set of planes, you also bought a No. 1 because this was the special plane, and it's almost always been that way. The other thing that's always been that way is we as human beings have to justify our purchases. Yeah, I use all my tools. Do I need to use them all? No, I could get by with a chisel, a saw, and a No. 4, and I could make just about anything. But I use them all because I have them. And I want other tools that I don't need, but I want. And the No. 1 is kind of in that place. It's something that we all really want, but does anyone really need it? I, as a human being, can justify pretty much anything. And that's kind of the history of the No. 1, is it's there because it's there. It's cute. It's lovable. It is a fantastic little plane to have. And if you're going to have a full set of planes, well, you need the No. 1. And we all as humans do like being first, and therefore we've got to be No. 1. There's just something about this that is drawing us to it like a moth to a flame. It is a fantastic little plane. Is it useful? Yeah, you can use it. Is it necessary? No. Is it the key plane that really is functional? No. But if I have one, I'm going to put it on my wall. I'm going to protect it. I'm going to build a housing for it. And I will pull it out and use it from time to time, because if I have the plane on my wall, I'm going to use it. So now let's wrap it all together. The No. 1. It's always had an ethos to it. It's always been the cute, valuable, special thing. But really, until Stanley stopped making them and selling them in their catalog, the value was set. The catalog price for a No. 1 was about the same as a No. 2 or a No. 3. It was something that wasn't incredibly valuable because they still offered them brand new. You could still go and buy a brand new plane. But then came World War II, and a lot of people had these nice planes that they really loved but weren't very useful, and they got rid of them in the scrap drive, a lot with all of these amazing big foot-powered tools, and tools that weren't really useful because of the power coming into the industry. A lot of those were destroyed for the war effort, and No. 1s were kind of thrown into that. They weren't very useful in the current working model, and therefore they were gotten rid of because the value wasn't incredibly high. Yes, they were held in a high regard, but the value wasn't there, so they were gotten rid of. And so now we only have a few of these, and Stanley isn't making them anymore. And they still have the ethos. And now if you want a full set, you need a No. 1. And you can kind of see how the ethos combined with the rarity, combined with not being able to bind a new one anymore, the price on these started to climb. And it started to climb very fast because they were hard to come by. And now, if you want to buy a No. 1 in okay shape, you're spending about $1,000. If you want to buy a number one in good shape, you're spending $1,200. If you want to buy an early number one in decent shape, you're looking upwards of $2,000 plus for a tiny little plane that really doesn't have any particular use. Is that a bad thing that the collectors have run away and driven up the price of this? No, because as a user, you don't need this. This is not a functional plane for the shop. It is not something that is necessary. Now, if you have it, you're probably going to use it, because if you have the tool, you're going to use it. You got to justify it. But do you need it? No. If you're a collector, this is then kind of the pinnacle of the collection. This is the number one, the ethos, and so you're willing to spend more money on it. And I think that's a good thing. It is a way that we can value things, not just by their use, but how they make us feel. And it's a number one. Of course it's worth $1,000. I know, I didn't answer why did Stanley make the number one. And I probably never will, because Stanley never recorded it. He never actually wrote down, I made it because of this. We don't have any advertisement saying, Stanley number one for a junior kids shop class. We don't have Stanley number one gets you into those nooks and crannies. We just have Stanley number one, Stanley number two, Stanley number three. Why did they make the Stanley number one? Because people wanted to buy it. And we as human beings have always liked to buy cute little things. And we probably will continue to buy cute little things. Now, if you want a number one, and you don't have to have the Stanley, you can go get a Lee Nielsen, you can go get a Wood River and save about $1,000, or you could go get a Veritas low angle that actually has a man-sized tote on the back that you can hold. That one looks kind of cool and interesting. Why did Veritas make it? Do people need the number one size? No. But people love cute things and people are willing to buy them. And having that number one with the man-size handle is something that people want to buy because we want to buy more tools. And because we want to buy it, they're going to make it. Is it a specific use tool? Maybe, probably not. But because we want to buy it, we're going to buy it. Okay, I'm sorry. I know I just started a whole pile of arguments out there. But this is one of these topics where, you know, there is no right or wrong. Why was it made? Who knows? Who cares? It doesn't matter. Do I still want the number one? Yes, because it's cute, it's fun, and it fills out the collection. Am I going to spend a lot of money for it? Yes, because it's a number one. So I hope you like this little bit of a talk, but this is one of the fun ones. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Feel free to unload on me and tell me why I'm wrong and why this is actually a good functional plane for the shop. I'd love to hear that. Or tell me your thoughts. Maybe you found something that I haven't been able to find. I'd love to hear that down below. Let me know those comments. I do read through all of them and I respond to as many of them as I can. So unfortunately, no, this is not my number one. One of these days I will buy one and I will probably paint it blue because it's mine and I can do what I want with it. But this one is actually from a friend of mine who let me borrow it as I did the restoration video. If you want to see that, I'll try and leave a link to the video down below. I'll be shipping this back to him later today. So thank you for letting me use it. If you do have any questions, thoughts, ideas, comments, let me know those down below. And also I want to say thank you to the patrons on Patreon, members here on the channel, everyone who is making this channel possible. I say it every week, but honestly, without you, the viewers, this channel would not exist. So thank you for that. Without people supporting the channel, clicking that join button, we would not be here. So if you'd like to keep the channel coming, think about supporting us, finding out more, you can find out that in the link down below. So I think that'll do it for now. And until next time, have a wonderful day. Never have I ever heard anyone say the Stanley number 8 is cute. I've never even heard that the Stanley number 2 is cute. But whenever someone looks at the Stanley number 1, they say, oh, he's so adorable, so cute.